Hi, this is Dr. Scott, and today we're going to get into the second part of Becky's question, and it's talking about the small business changes to the IRS and accounting. Okay, so read the question one more time too. I'll let you see a little bit of this so you kind of, read along a little. I didn't put everything on the screen because it doesn't let me do that. I own a small accounting, excuse me. I own a small accounting firm. We do payroll, bookkeeping, and taxes for small businesses. My question is about the IRS going down. What kind of reporting will there be still for these small businesses? I want my young employees to keep working, in essence. I was hoping not to have another tax season. Oh my God, I love you. It's impossible to deal with the IRS. Oh, we're going to talk about that one today. And I've done this kind of work since 1995. Becky, first off, let me tell you, let me address this in a couple ways. And I know we sort of talked a little bit about this before. We talked about some of this area just to give you a background. The first video, we talked about the America First trade policy. And in that policy, he does not do the Fed anywhere. The Fed has no part in this conversation. That is so outrageous for most people. They don't get it. And you're going to see it over and over again, including a clip I'm going to show you in a minute, that they don't get it. But Treasury is the only one listed basically first. I mean, Secretary of State, it drives through the state, okay? But the Treasury is first in this line. There are two interesting parts that get into here. Let's see here. Yep, this one here, where the Treasury is going to look at how we actually do this correctly and appropriate the budget without IRS, baby. Second area that I think is super, super fascinating. Actually, it was this one here that is talking about the this one is talking about some of the parts of the IRS. Nope, I'm sorry. Section B. Sorry. This part talks about how they're going to implement the ERS, or the deletion of the IRS. It is literally off the playbook of NESARA kind of stuff. Collects taxes, tariffs, duties, and other kinds of things. And what I was talking about here, sorry about that, a second ago, was the currency flip that has to occur that deals with inflation issues. Okay. Now, I want to show you, and I want to kind of make a little bit of a comment, and then we'll kind of come back to some of these little areas in here. And Becky is doing something incredibly hard. She's known about payroll taxes and excuse me, IRS taxation for a long time, since 1995, right? I don't know when Becky actually woke up. It doesn't really matter to me on that one thing. Not you matter to me, just not that particular fact, right? And yet most people are, told pay your taxes. That's being a good citizen, right? And yet Becky has built a whole business off of this, and it has obviously probably she's a CPA, and so are other people underneath her, right? And they've interacted with the IRS for a long time. And she says that direct statement, because she's talking about 24, 20, 22, 23, and 21, and she's basically saying the IRS are almost impossible to deal with in the last 3 years. Oh my God, that's what I've been hearing over and over and again. My accountants have said the same thing. They would call over and over again and barely get through. That has never happened in the past, where fear mongers have been bugging you and telling you, sorry, really still getting over being sick, where fear mongers have been telling you the IRS are going to hire 180 or 87,000 agents, and they're all going to have guns. And Trump basically trolled them the other day. I'll just maybe put them all on the border. He's basically saying, you're out of here. You're not going to do any of the things you think you're doing. And none of them are going to work in the same way they have. But guess what? None of them have been working. There's so little left of them. They're so fascinating with that too. And so Becky's kind of going, man, this is a big second segment of my business going out. To give you an example of what, this kind of stuff looks like. So most people don't see this. This is the accounting. Sorry, I'm going to make that screen a little bigger here. Oops. let's do that a little bigger. So, business accounting is incredibly hard to do. Most people who, when they do their their taxes, most small businesses don't use an accountant until they have to do their taxation at the end of the year. So they frankly have no idea if they're positive or negative. They just know kind of like what felt a little bit worse this year or felt a little bit better this year. But they don't have any idea if they're making money. And payroll taxes is a pretty significant, and this is just an example of what happens. It's a very payroll taxes for business, man. I mean, it's all the idiotic taxes that we actually have to pay for our employees just to keep them around with that stuff too. This is actually a picture. I'm going to show you a better blown up of that one here. This is by Gusto. This is actually a company I utilize. I've liked them for a long time. I'm not trying to stump the trail for this, but when you look at it, let me see if I can do it a little closer so you can read it. So we'll just arrow up and down here a little bit. Okay, hope you can kind of see this. Actually, I'll pull me off the screen a little bit more so you can kind of see this, and I'll show you. So for instance, Gusto utilizes this system where, here's your regular hour, your regular pay, right? So she's talking about someone making 37 bucks an hour, 40 hours, 1480, and this is probably early on in the year. Okay. So FICA, Social Security, Medicare, California State, and SDI. God, that is just, I can't believe that they have to add those kinds of things. Now, the company actually has to pay the employer level taxes. You guys pay this, but the employer has to pay this kind of stuff out of her pocket. And then we have, money that she took out for her IRA. Whoops, I'm using the wrong side there. And then, employee contributions. That would be like a simple IRA. And then, so this person, I want you to think about this, and this is really, really powerful. She gets $1,400, $1,480 a month, right? Or a paycheck, and she only takes home $1,100. That's not bad, overall. But when you calculate over a year, you spend a huge amount of time just dealing with the idiocy of the IRS here with this too. And so let me pull back and pull that, off the screen. So what happens in this situation is that there's a lot of accounting that has to happen. And Becky, one of the things that I think that you're going to be doing is that when we go to a performance-based economy, in essence, the companies who didn't do any accounting in the past are not going to survive, because you know what they're going to do? Most people who don't do accounting. So I'm talking to all you guys, you small businesses, and I'm also talking to your accounting firms that thinking that you're going to die because your heads are exploding because you're not going to have the IRS taxation that you're going to, you made your money off of. And I'm saying to you right now, Becky is so beautiful in this situation, because what she's saying is like, I hate this thing. And I want to get rid of it too. But she knows that that's a big part of her business. And here's the answer. People are going to need accounting even more in the future. Why? Because the ones that don't use any accounting and just go for taxation, they'll never even do financials again. They'll never even know what they're doing. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to spin out of control and blow up. And then people are going to come in and go, you know what? If you want to run a business, you better do your accounting and better know what it costs to run the business. For many of us, it's been very, very difficult to accomplish this, because there's so many regulations and so many little things that they do to screw with you in many ways. And I'm telling you, we're going to need accountants even more. Don't give up accountants, because, and by the way, we're going to still, and payroll companies, we need you too. We need you to be able to pull the direct deposits for our people. We need you to help us with apportioning. And by the way, we're still going to have to pull out Social Security. You're still going to have to pay for Medicare. I just think those will go into a pot of money set up for you down the road. Baby, that's going to be good. Instead of you pulling out a huge amount of money in Medicare and you only get a tiny pittance of the number that you actually put in over the years, you're going to see a very big increase because that's what is supposed to be done. That was what it should have happened from the beginning. If I was pulling out money for my retirement in essence, and I'm pulling out money of my own for my own simple IRA, shouldn't I get the stuff back? And why should I have to pay taxation when I take the money out of the IRA? Didn't I just get taxed on all that money going in, and then I have to get secondarily taxed when I take out that money, and then we get taxed another time for Social Security. That means you're actually getting taxed 3 different times, and on top of every other kinds of taxes out there. That's how illegal the IRS has been. And we're going to need accountants to be there to help people out. I'm going to show you a couple of videos and we'll kind of talk a little bit more with this.
Demand that the interest rates come down. Do you expect
I would put in a strong statement.
Do you expect the Fed to listen to you?
Yeah.
Are you going to talk to Powell about this and bringing the rates down?
At the right time, I would.
He doesn't even care. I'm telling you, I love News Treason, by the way, that pull this little video from him. What you guys don't understand, and you go, well, what does that have to do with the IRS thing, right? It has everything to do with it. Because the major amount of money that is made in the government comes from IRS. And so if you're replacing the IRS, what are you going to replace it with, and how are you going to make the money? Well, that's what that American First policy was, right? Let me show you this video. This is kind of cool.
Sure did. ESG is a term that's supposed to measure how nice a company is.
E, environment, greenhouse gas emissions.
S stands for the social side, union rights, diversity, even abortion access. The G stands for governance, even executive pay.
Big investment companies like BlackRock pressured companies to hire certain people.
You have to force behaviors, whether it's gender or race.
And they pushed sustainability.
All investments are going to be looked through sustainability.
But sustainability is this largely meaningless word that companies use to appear nice. Admit it, we made investment mistakes. But then they blame the public, saying stocks often trade at foolish prices. But don't worry, says Gore, eventually stock markets will see the wisdom of his vision.
The world is shifting toward sustainability.
At least reporters now push back.
People are pulling money from some of these environmental funds. Is this the beginning of the end of sustainable investing?
No, I don't think so at all.
These greedy companies whose main goal is to say we outperform the next guy, why'd they go along with this?
Their largest clients are blue states pensions like CalPERS and the New York pension, who put pressure on them to say, you either adopt these agendas or you're going to lose us as your largest customer.
So CalPERS brags about mitigating climate risk and getting Exxon to hire climate-conscious board members. Federal officials pushed ESG on banks.
They will invest into climate-related efforts.
But now banks and BlackRock are running from these alliances.
What you're seeing today is ESG funds shuttering at record speed. If you remember the Homer Simpson meme where he goes back into the shrub, they're going back into the shrub and they're not apologizing.
They never do. That's a lot of time and energy spent not making the best chip.
Shares of Intel are having their worst day since 1974.
Intel stock is now worth a fraction of what it was a few years ago.
Basically, they're showing all the stupid and how it actually hasn't really worked in the way that it could. And that's why we're going to need accounting. That's why we're going to need it even worse. Now, let me show you this one. This is pretty funny here in the video too.
I mean, you read Tim Reyes and all these guys, mouthpieces of the Fed. You read a lot about that. They care more about tariffs at the moment than they do about inflation or interest rates or anything else. Mr. Trump has something to say about that, but let's start with that. They're obsessing about tariffs, Kevin.
So it's a good way to dodge a little responsibility. Inflation surged long before the president came into office and the rest. So they first said it was because of the war in Europe. Then they said it was because of supply chains and COVID. But inflation is still a huge regressive tax on the American people. So there's a new contrivance going about Washington and some in New York, which is the president's threatened tariffs. That's the source of inflation. They don't seem to put the same emphasis on the spending cuts that you and I think are real and are coming. They don't seem to spend as much time and attention on the deregulation. These are hugely disinflationary forces. President seems like he's ready to take matters.
See, some of these people, and this guy's an old Fed guy, right? And he believes that if you fix some of those things, you fix all the inflation points, right? And because they think of, oh, inflation's still going to be there, right? No, it's not going to be there. I'm going to show you how it's not going to be there.
Into his own hands. He seemed more troubled by inflation than the central bank, whose job it is to deal with high prices.
That is a great point. Can we stop there? That's a wonderful point. Because so many media outlets misreported it. They're saying he was furious at the Fed for not cutting interest rates. That is not true. In fact, if you read his Truth Social, he didn't mention interest rates. What he did was he said what you just said. He said Jay Powell and the Fed failed to stop the problem they created with inflation. And he said, I'll do it by unleashing American energy production, slashing regulation, rebalancing trade, and reigniting manufacturing. The Treasury is going to lead the effort to cut unnecessary regulation. He said, if the Fed has spent less time on DEI, gender ideology, green energy, and fake climate change, inflation would never have been a problem. I mean, that...
Here's what I'm going to tell you on this whole thing. Everyone is going to have to pivot, including, Becky. And this is a good thing. She is a smart person. Most people are going to let it come up on them, and they're going to just be freaking out, run around with a chicken with the head cut off kind of stuff, because they don't even know what to do. And Becky's going to look at this and go, I'm going to give you the inside answer, Becky. You are going to find ways of picking on those clients who say to you, here's what I want you to tell them. Like, oh, you're not going to do any more taxes anymore? Well, guess what? How do you know what your business is doing? You've been relying on BlackRock and Vanguard to tell you indicators of your business. I've made the pivot. You need to make it too. She said, what kind of reporting will happen? I think there's going to be plenty of reporting, but it's going to come from that personal business making commitment to living within their budget, to finding out, are we doing it correctly? As a business owner myself, and I look at my books like nobody's business. I was with a group of people, and there were 250 audiologists. And people used to say, and all the people used to tell me over and over again, I have the cleanest books out there. Why? Because I used to pick on every single thing. I would shove that down here and go, okay, our percentage is too high. Why are we spending too much money on that? Well, maybe I need to go over and renegotiate that. And so I've always been in the pivot game. And here's the thing. There is a massive pivot coming up with accounting, with IRS. And you might think this is just a boring video. It's going to affect everything. And it's going to be good, but you've got to be on top of it. You've got to be thinking and asking God, what am I supposed to do next? And I can tell you right now, I would be calling every single one of those people who just come into you for taxes, and they come in with the proverbial shoebox and they pull out all of their receipts. Let me give you an example. I'm going to come off screen for half a second. This is my little shoebox that I hold around. Now, I finished at the end of the day, and there's all these little papers. But you know that most small businesses walk into and by the way, personal, and they walk in with all these little things, drop it on the person, and they're like, go fix it. And then you got, your accounting people are just like, oh my God, why do I have to see every pet bill in here? See, I always take that, cut it down to like the short number of bills. I have a little thumb drive and I have my other stuff. And that's how I actually handle the taxation kind of part. But here's what I do. I spend so much time looking at every single thing of the budgets to make sure that we're in line. And companies are going to start doing that. And here's the other thing. Trump is going to make them over and over again. So most of these people I showed you here that were from Fox News or whatever are too stupid to realize that it's coming directly for them as well. And only Becky gets it. Becky, you are going to be in great situation. Promise you. Thanks so much.